What's up, Flick fans? We're talking about the brand new Amazon Prime series, Secret Level. If you're a video game fan, you may want to check this out.
But that person who did those things, that's still me.
So we have 15 original stories set within the worlds of iconic video games and featured in this animated anthology series. My first question is, did you ever watch Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix? This is very similar, except we're taking video game properties and just video game ideas as opposed to more original stories. Tim Miller is also a huge part of this, plays a huge role. He did in that series as well. So very similar vibe and feel. And honestly, it kind of felt like I was watching Love, Death, and Robots, except with video game properties, from PAC-MAN to Warhammer, and we're going to talk about it, but we're going to talk in more detail about the first 8 episodes, because the last batch comes out next week. If you guys enjoy this video, drop a like on this video. We'll discuss those episodes as well. I've seen all 15 episodes because I got screeners from Prime Video, but I only want to talk about the first 8. In general, I do think this show accomplishes a lot, especially if you're a fan of the specific video game in which they're doing for these specific episodes, or if you just get excited to hear famous voices in little shows like this, such as Keanu Reeves, Arnold Schwarzenegger. They all pop up, and honestly, most of them are really good. The voice cast in general is rock solid. But I will tell you my overlaying negative here, and I had this issue with almost every episode. I just felt, whenever an episode ended, for the most part, I said to myself, I wish that was longer. Or that felt like just a taste, or a tease, or just a little bit, or a piece of a story to where, you know, I'm invested with cool visuals, and that's fantastic. The different animation styles, the art styles, obviously, some of them similar to each other, but for the most part, they try to switch it up a little bit with every episode, just like they did in Love, Death, and Robots. But it's hard to get really invested when you don't spend a lot of time with these characters. A story that can capture that in 15 minutes, get you invested in the characters, get you to care about the story, that's something that's really impressive. But I didn't feel that way about every episode. And that's why this review as a whole depends more on how I feel about each individual episode as opposed to the show as a whole, because they're all different and because not all of them worked extremely well for me. Let's start with episode 1, and this one's all about Dungeons and Dragons. I will say, some of them feel like cutscenes from video games or intros into a level that you're about to play. This one did kind of feel like that, right? I love the battle sequences here. The animation is awesome. The dragons look great. But what I love about Dungeons and Dragons is that sometimes it doesn't take itself too seriously. Maybe I'm spoiled from the live-action movie, but this one's like a brooding force of nature. It's taking itself very seriously. It's very epic, but you don't really know who these characters are. Now, if you're a fan of Dungeons & Dragons, you probably do, but for me, kind of on the outside looking in, other than the movie, I'm just kind of like, I don't know anybody. It's a cool sequence, but it feels like a video game cutscene. Episode 2, the Sifu episode, was a little bit more engaging. I think I enjoyed spending more time with this character specifically, but these characters, this is obviously a martial arts game, but really a martial arts world that you're engrossing yourself in. Animation, art style, very different from the first, but it still worked out really well. But those martial arts sequences on display work, and they're cool, and you're enjoying the fights and the battle. Although, again, I did have the issue of, okay, not really understanding who this character is, what this world is entirely, but I'm enjoying what you're putting on display. This one felt less like a video game cutscene and more like something that would make you want to go and play the game, which in itself isn't the best, but I enjoyed it. Now, episode 3, New World, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm just sitting here like, all right, they're casting Arnold. This is one of those, you're getting a big name to play a loaf of a character, just a jackass who comes in, claims to be the king of this land and of these people. He has a one-armed best friend with him and says, you know what, I'm going to go fight the king to become the king. The problem is he's really bad at what he's trying to do. And this episode was great. This is what I'm talking about, man. Getting you invested in the story, caring about the characters. Now, this self-absorbed main character isn't someone you particularly care about, but you come to understand why he had this mentality in the beginning, and I thought that was explained really well. But also this friendship that kind of gets you through the episode. Also the repetitive series of events, the live, die, repeat type style to where you can't die on this island. That was great, man. Episode 3 was awesome. If this was a show, I don't know how you would do it with multiple episodes, but if this was a show, I'd be on board. And I loved it. This was an awesome short film, if you will. Didn't feel like a cutscene. Didn't feel like a promotion for a video game. It just felt like its own thing. And I thought Arnold, say what you will about casting someone of that caliber, fit this character perfectly. Did a great job. Next up, we have Unreal Tournament. This is episode 4. I found this to be another really entertaining, like, Terminator 2 style short with this switch up of we're going to have all of these different groups battle each other. The robots take over. We take them captive. It's this huge tournament. And this map that they put them in at the end of the episode is fantastic. I had a great time with this. Now, it's not one that you're getting super on board with characters. It's not one where I'm going to say the writing is the best I've ever seen. But it's just this really cool thing that you're getting invested in, a showcase of technology. And ultimately, this is one of the more fun, not really engaging, but fun episodes of Secret Level. All right, Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. I don't know really anything about Warhammer 40,000. I almost said 30. All I know is that Henry Cavill is trying to do something in live action here, and I would be completely on board with that. Not only is this big mechanical suit incredible, not only are the battles in this episode awesome, but I just really enjoyed what they put on screen. This mutated Mad Max-style world is awesome. There's a backstory there that I don't want to dive into that apparently has a tie-in with the creator who did this episode for a certain reason. You could look up this story. It's absolutely beautiful. But just watching this, man, I'm sitting here salivating over more Warhammer, and I kind of want to learn about this world. This is one of those episodes that didn't give you a ton of development and character, but it showed you enough of the world, the atmosphere, kind of what they're doing with this Mad Max feel that I want to learn more about. And so this one was really interesting as it was going, and I don't want to spoil a lot with it, but if you're a Warhammer fan, I think you're going to enjoy it, but if you're not, maybe this could get you invested. Episode 6, PAC-MAN. This is insane. I don't think everybody's going to like this because it's not Pac-Man, but it is Pac-Man. It's this guy wandering around and this, ominous entity kind of feeding into his ear, you must eat or you will be eaten. And you're like, where does Pac-Man come? Oh my God. You're watching like, this is crazy. But this is a great example of what they can do here. You can take this IP, you can switch it up, change it, be creative with it. They don't really do this as much with the other properties, but I understand Pac-Man's a little bit more, it's just kind of a thing chasing some dots, and you can kind of switch that up to match your flavor, but this isn't going to be everyone's flavor. Some people love steak, others prefer chicken. There are a few that don't like meat. And so it all depends on what your taste is. I actually thought this was really cool because I played Pac-Man growing up like everyone, but I don't often think of Pac-Man as, oh, it's this lore-filled IP that you can't mess with. You can pretty much do whatever you want with Pac-Man, and they do, and it's awesome. As cool as Pac-Man on Super Smash Bros? No. I'm pretty good with Pac-Man. It's weird, but I've gotten good lately. Episode 7, Crossfire. This feels like something I've seen before and a lot of. People running around, escorting this package around. It feels like they're on a little mission of sorts, and I think it's stylistic. I enjoyed the score to this one, but it's just very generic on its surface, and I wasn't loving what I was seeing. It was cool, but there was no characters to connect to. There was nothing about the story. Again, some of them feel like cutscenes to games. Others feel like things that we've seen 1,000 times just repackaged, repurposed, and shoved into a very short runtime. Now, this, I think, is the longest one of the series, but all in all, I didn't love it. It was fine. And finally, for this batch of episodes, Armored Core starring Keanu Reeves, a guy that's just brooding and sad, and he's walking around, he's got a voice in his head. Keanu Reeves, I think, commits heavily to this role. I thought he did a very good job. And I thought the dynamic between he and the voice in his head, kind of what he's saying and how he's kind of handling what he's going through, struggling to handle it, if you will, was interesting enough. But I'm going to use the same complaint that I've used for the others that I had issues with, and it just feels like a video game cutscene. It's ultra realistic style of animation. It kind of looks like an animated Keanu Reeves walking around, which is cool in its own way, but it feels like we're gearing up to take the controller and start a mission. That's kind of what it feels like. Or we're getting some backstory on this character that we need to play out a new adventure with. And that's the vibe I got from this episode. Now, that's the first date. I don't want to go into detail on any others because that is next week. But all in all, this show as a whole, now I'm going to factor in the rest of the episodes, I do think there's a lot to like here. If you're a video game fan, you're going to get a kick out of this. You're going to prefer some, you're going to dislike others, but I do believe you're going to have a good time with it. Again, my favorite is the Arnold episode. Episode 3 was awesome. Some of the others were good to really good. A few of them were meh, and one or two, and we'll get into the back half of this. I feel like I liked more in the first half than the second half, if that gives you any idea. But for the most part, they were fine. Before I give you my score, would you like a review next week of the second batch of episodes? And we can talk more detail, maybe get a little more spoilery, since all the episodes will be out. Drop that thumbs up to let me know. Secret Level features various interesting animation styles, a few memorable moments, and some exciting worlds. Some episodes fall short of potential while feeling like unnecessary cutscenes.